What is the legacy of the Zapatista Uprising? What is the legacy of the Zapatista Uprising? This question takes us to the heart of a movement that began on January 1, 1994, in Chiapas, Mexico. The Zapatista Army of National Liberation, known as the EZLN, launched an armed rebellion. Their goal was to demand rights and recognition for indigenous peoples who had faced poverty and exclusion for too long. This uprising was a significant moment in Latin American history, challenging the neoliberal policies that neglected these communities. The Zapatistas brought international attention to the struggles of indigenous peoples in Chiapas and across Mexico. They successfully expelled landowners from many haciendas and established autonomous zones. In these zones, indigenous communities created their own schools, health clinics, and governance structures. These community-run institutions continue to serve rural populations that the state has often overlooked. This model of self-determination is rooted in indigenous culture and collective decision-making. Politically, the uprising sparked important changes in Mexico's civil society. It inspired widespread mobilization for human rights, democracy, and social inclusion. This movement contributed to the weakening of the long-standing one-party rule in Mexico. Although peace agreements like the San Andrés Accords promised indigenous autonomy and rights, the Mexican government did not fully implement these commitments. This failure led to ongoing protests and activism by the EZLN and its supporters. Culturally, the Zapatista movement revitalized indigenous identity and pride. They emphasized respect for indigenous languages, traditions, and communal values. The use of symbols, such as the iconic balaclava masks and the slogan "Ya basta," meaning "enough is enough," resonated deeply within Latin culture. These expressions became powerful symbols of resistance against oppression and neoliberal globalization. The uprising also highlighted the historical legacy of colonialism in Latin America. It showed the long history of land dispossession, racism, and economic inequality. The Zapatistas positioned indigenous peoples as active agents in shaping their future rather than passive victims. Their focus on non-hierarchical, participatory democracy and gender equality challenged traditional power structures both locally and nationally. In practical terms, the Zapatista legacy includes the creation of autonomous indigenous territories with self-governance and social services. It has led to a sustained indigenous and social movement that continues to advocate for land rights, cultural recognition, and political inclusion. The Zapatistas have inspired other social movements in Latin America and around the world to resist neoliberal policies. They fight for alternative models of development based on justice and equality. The cultural reaffirmation of indigenous identity counters centuries of marginalization. Despite increased militarization in Chiapas after the uprising, the Zapatistas have maintained their presence and message. They adapt to changing political contexts while holding firm to their principles. From the perspective of Latin culture, the Zapatista uprising is seen as a political and social movement. It is also a cultural renaissance that affirms indigenous dignity, community solidarity, and the possibility of building societies that honor diversity and justice. The legacy of the Zapatista uprising remains a symbol of hope and defiance for marginalized peoples in Latin America and beyond.